Warning, check your back seat. I wasn't worried about the message when it first popped up. It's one of those things they put in these days to make sure no one leaves a child in a hot car, I guess. It hadn't ever shown me that warning before, but I figured maybe a passenger had left a purse on the floor or something and it was detecting the weight. There wasn't anything there, though. I looked under the seats and everything, even ran my hands along the back edge to see if there was a wallet or phone stuck in the crack. I didn't think that sort of thing would set off the alarm, but the car was still fairly new, so I couldn't be sure. Regardless, nothing was there. I'd forgotten about it by the end of the next day, honestly, but when I pulled into my driveway and turned off the car, there it was again on my dashboard. I checked the back seat again. Still nothing. I hadn't had any messages from passengers looking for any lost items either. Maybe this was just a thing the car did, just a general warning to remind drivers to check the back seat every time they got out. If so, it felt counterproductive. If the warning was there every time, people were bound to start ignoring it. It would just become part of the background. Also, I was sure that the car hadn't been doing this for the first several months I'd had it. On the other hand, this was the sort of change they might have pushed through a software update. There could have been some new legislation, some lobbying group pushing to have this warning on permanently, like the meaningless parental advisory stickers on music. I looked online that night, searching through car forums and news posts for any mention of this warning. I couldn't find any indication that it was supposed to be happening every time I turned the car off. In fact, it didn't seem to be showing up for anyone else. This problem was only in my car. Clearly, it was just a bad sensor. It was probably still under warranty, but in order to get it fixed, I'd still have to leave it at the dealership for a day, and the warranty wasn't going to pay my lost income for the day off. I told myself I could just ignore it. It was just a single line of text. I'd stop noticing it in no time. I was wrong. Every time I turned the car off, that message glared at me like a dire omen. I found myself obsessively checking the back seat every time I got out, even though I knew I'd find nothing. I vacuumed the car until not so much as a crumb remained. I checked the seatbelt latches. Everything was perfect, but the warning still appeared. I tried ignoring it. I averted my eyes when I turned the car off, but I could feel it glowing from the deactivated dash, see the phantom words printed across the darkness of my eyelids. I walked away from the car without looking in the back, telling myself that it was a waste of time and there was nothing to find. I knew I was right, of course, but I found myself wide awake at 3 a.m, staring at the ceiling and thinking, what if? I ended up kneeling in the street in my pajamas with my phone flashlight on, looking under the seats for something I knew wouldn't be there. The back seat was as empty as always. The warning haunted me constantly. I only saw it when I stopped the car, but I knew it was always coming. I began to watch the back seat constantly, eyes flicking to the rearview mirror more than was safe or reasonable. My passengers noticed. My rating began to dip, with notes marking concerns about attentiveness to the road. My tips suffered as well. Finally, I bit the bullet and took the car in to get the sensor fixed. The warning mocked me as I parked it in the lot, daring me to go inside without looking. I wanted to. I knew there was nothing there, but if I claimed there was a sensor issue and they found a bag or a box or some other physical object sitting back there, I'd look like I was too dumb to have just checked the back seat. I knew I had checked it. I had checked it 1,000 times, but I looked once more just to be sure. I explained my problem to the man at the counter. He typed some notes into his computer and said, "Gonna be a few hours until we can get you in." "That's fine," I said. "I'll wait." "You sure you don't have—" I cut him off more emphatically than I intended. "There is nothing in the back seat. I have made very sure of that." All right, he said, raising his hands to placate me. Just trying to save you some time in case. I went to look again after that. I really couldn't have stood being wrong at that point. It was empty. It was always empty. I knew every crevice of that back seat now. There was nothing there. I sat in the waiting room drinking coffee and playing on my phone. I was inexorably nervous. I couldn't figure out why. It was just a sensor issue. They would find it and fix it. The problem would go away. It was crazy that I'd waited this long, that I'd let it get to me this much. Finally, they called me back up to the front. "Well, we can't find anything wrong with your car," the mechanic said. "What do you mean? There's absolutely nothing in the back seat. I have made very sure of that. Back seat's clean as a whistle, sure, but we can't get that warning to turn on either, not with someone in the back seat. It cuts on like it's supposed to with a person back there, but if it's just the driver, it doesn't show." My expression must have been somewhere between disbelief and rage. The mechanic took a step back. "Look, I'll come show you." I calmed myself and followed him out to the garage. He turned on the car while I watched through the window. He let it run for a moment, then turned it off. No message appeared. "See?" he said. "We can replace the part if you want, but since we can't find an issue, it's not going to be covered under warranty. And we've got to take the entire back seat out to do it, so there's going to be a decent labor fee." I ignored him and got into the car. I turned it on, and then, with trepidation, turned it back off. For the first time in weeks, no message appeared. The rush of relief I felt was incredible. I turned the car on and off again several more times. There was no message. The warning was gone. "You happy?" the mechanic asked. "Incredibly," I said. He shrugged. "Wish they were all this easy." I drove home feeling like I was floating. I hadn't realized how much tension I had been carrying, or how much my car had begun to feel like a prison. The road was broad and open. The day was beautiful. I was free. In my peripheral vision, a light flickered. Something on the passenger side of the car had blinked out, a little orange light that I could remember never having paid attention to before. I stared sharply at it now, trying to figure out what had been illuminated. It blinked briefly again, on just long enough for me to read it, "Passenger airbag off." It stayed on whenever there was no one in the front passenger seat. It was off now. The final short blink could have been anything. It could have been an LED failing, a sensor breaking, any of 1,000 electrical glitches. Or it could have been something settling itself into the passenger seat. I pulled over to the side of the road. I left the car running when I got out. I did not look back as I walked away. There was no point. I knew there was nothing in the back seat anymore. I never went back for the car. The police called a few days later. They'd found my vehicle, they said. Some kids had taken it out joyriding. It was in bad shape, so were the kids. They were reviewing the dash cam footage, but did I want a copy for my insurance? I shouldn't have watched it. I knew that before I ever put the thumb drive in my computer. But I had to know. They were laughing at first, whooping and hollering as they sped away down the street, all clearly having fun at first. Pretty soon, though, one of them starts cautioning the driver to slow down. The panic starts then, screaming that the pedals won't work, the wheel won't turn, the doors won't open. All the while, the speed on the display is creeping higher and higher. It ends as you'd expect. I'm sure there will be questions about why I left my car with the keys in it, whether I knew something was wrong. I suppose the clean bill of health I got from the dealership that day will be useful in proving my innocence. I'm not worried about that right now, though. My Ring doorbell is notifying me that there's someone on my front porch, but the camera shows nothing at all.